Now, the Bram Weinstein Show on Washington's new home for sports, ESPN 630.
Hey, babies. Hey, babies, hey, babies, hey, babies, hey, babies, hey, babies, hey, babies. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. We've made it, everybody. We're here. Thank God. This night will be over soon. 3 o'clock now. In about 5.5 hours or so, we'll get the answer we've been looking for. Who is the number 2 overall pick? Because I'm going to assume that at 8 o'clock, Roger Goodell will announce the draft is starting, and then the Bears, for some bizarre reason, will be told not to turn in the pick for 10, 15 minutes, even though they've known for weeks.
Yep.
And that will then put Washington on the clock. 10 minutes later, around 8:30, they will make a selection, and we will know. And I cannot believe that at 3 o'clock on draft day, being that Washington's been on the clock for all intents and purposes for at least, by my calculation, 7 to 8 weeks, really since the combine ended, when it really put to rest the idea that Caleb Williams was not going to fight going to Chicago, and clearly they were going to pick him. And everything that's happened since, has led you to believe there's no way that there's a surprise coming there. They've been on the clock. I can't believe we're 5 hours away and we don't know who it is. I can't believe it.
I can. This regime, from the second they've gotten here, and even I would even say the regime, this ownership, they haven't felt the need to say anything about anything. And so I'm not surprised we don't know who it's going to be at this point, because I think if we were going to find out, we would have known last week. That's where I have landed at this point. As soon as we got past the threshold of the weekend, essentially, and Jaden Daniels saying it would be okay to come to D.C., I knew we weren't going to find out until they literally make the announcement on Tuesday, or on Thursday tonight.
And the benefit of that is what exactly?
I mean, you could have some team.
This is where I've landed at this point, where I'm just not exactly sure, other than keep other teams guessing, which I guess is a competitive advantage. And that alone to me is why I think I would understand that part of it, because obviously a lot of teams want to trade. Obviously, we're not moving out of this spot. Them not knowing what we're going to do benefits us competitively, I suppose. So I guess that's the leverage point and why Washington would want to keep such a tight lid on all of this.
Right. Also, you're saying who does it, what does it matter really? But it's not like it benefits them to let it be known who they're going to draft. Like, what if the Raiders turn around and say, here's 3 full drafts, to move up to number 2? Like, I'm just saying, like.
Then the answer is yes, Jim.
Right,
yes, we'll be, here we go, Jim.
Like Joe
yeah.
Fortenbaugh joked about it on his show like 2 hours ago, because he was filling in for Greeny. But he kind of went on that and was like, well, if the Raiders think that's their guy, then why are they not trading 2 drafts worth of picks to go move up to number 2? And they were kind of like, I don't know. I guess that's a good point. Like, if you think that's your guy. So I think if you're the Commanders, you're going, we're going to stand pat until we have to. And then if one of you guys loses your minds because of the paranoia, which is what we talked about yesterday, if the paranoia gets to some team and they give them a haul, like, I don't know. They did the right thing. I
feel like at this point, if they were going to trade, that it would have happened by now. Like,
I agree.
because again, everybody knows who's going number 1.
Right.
So this is all about who do you want, like whoever you want at number 2. And you have to get to us because number 3 is probably taking a quarterback as well. So I think the trade would have happened by now. Like, I don't think there's this last minute, screw it, give him everything, like the Ricky Williams trade. Like, I really don't think that that's going to happen here. I think that would have happened a week ago.
Right. I agree with you, but also at the same time, if, let's say, the Commanders, they're not really picking up the phone. They said they've been fine with staying at number 2. How do you get past that? Well, you offer a haul, and I'm sure everyone's asking, can we get up to number 3 without giving up whatever the hell they're asking for? I don't know. All I'm saying is there's not a benefit to them saying that it's the pick either. That's all. That's where I'm landing on it at this point.
Yeah, okay. I get it from a competitive standpoint, and I talked about this yesterday, and I want to play this again today. Even the person who is likely to be the pick, Jaden Daniels, and I think that's what it's going to be. But again, I don't say with any certainty at all who it's going to be. I think it's going to be him, but I wouldn't be shocked if it's Drake May or J.J. McCarthy, honestly, like at this point. Even he clearly doesn't know. And it's exemplified by doing the interviews that he's done. And here he was earlier today. I'm not sure which ESPN program he was on, but he was on an ESPN program.
That Get Up.
And they Get Up, and they asked him about, whether he thinks he's going to Washington. And this is what he said about it.
Every mock draft has you going number 2 to Washington. Have you gotten any assurances from the Commanders that they are going to take you with that number 2 pick?
Nah, I ain't got any assurance. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know when I'm going to hear my name called by who, so we shall see.
Now, last week it was interesting. The Commanders brought you in for a visit, but they also brought in J.J. McCarthy, Drake May, Michael Penix, all at the same time. I know your agent went on Twitter. He certainly had an issue with it. Did you have an issue with it?
Man, I control what I can control. At the end of the day, I know those guys. We're all very cool, and it was a fun visit. So it wasn't anything to it. I mean, they decided to invite all of us up there. We're just all blessed to be up there at the same time to share that experience.
Now, the Raiders. There's stories that they're reportedly trying to move up to number 2 and get you because of your relationship with Antonio Pierce, who, by the way, was an assistant when you were there at Arizona State. Would you like to play with Antonio Pierce and the Raiders?
If I had the opportunity, I'd love to play with AP, but, I can't control that. I'm going to control where I go, and whatever organization drafts me is going to get the best out of me.
Okay. All right. So he said all the right things, right? Again.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't know whether he's going number 2 or not. And it's human nature. If he knew, you'd see the smile or the slip or the obvious body language. I don't think they've told him that he's the number 2 overall pick. And he's saying the right things because he can't be presumptuous. All the I'll go with whoever picks me is the right thing to say because you don't want to be presumptuous that that's what you're doing. But there is, and this is why I'm asking this whole thing, like, why not just say what you're going to do? And why not have said it, I don't know, a couple days ago if you already knew? Because yesterday we finally had the report, I think it was Sherry Burris, who I just saw actually outside. She's covering the team from here for the NFL Network, where I think she said that they've made their decision. And they're still not saying what that decision is. And I suppose this is mandate from the league because even the Bears wouldn't officially say they're picking Caleb Williams, even though everybody knows they're going to do it. And I guess the NFL just doesn't want them to preempt the draft at all. And if they do that and then Washington says Jaden Daniels, then the draft doesn't really start till pick 3. And then things, then people start asking New England. I understand all of that. But even he, in body language and tone and what he's saying, he's not being presumptuous because I believe him. He literally doesn't know if he's going to be the 2nd overall pick. And I bring this up because of what we talked about yesterday, which in the end, I don't think the Topgolf thing was, however it irked his people, whether it irked him or not. He's saying it didn't, but whether it irked him or not, who cares? If because it irked his people, they made it clear it irked them a little bit. I actually, in the end, don't actually think it was about him being lumped in with a lot of people. I more think it's about, how do you not know my guy's your guy? That's what I actually think it's about now. I think it's been misconstrued as he's a diva because he wants to be treated differently than others. I'm not so sure that's the case. I actually think it's about, wait a minute. We've gone through this whole process. You've been on the clock for weeks. Once it became so abundantly clear that the Bears are not trading the pick and they're taking Caleb Williams, you guys have been on the clock. So how do you not know that my guy's your guy? And I think that is that's the part I'm trying to get to here, I think. And that's where I've kind of landed the last couple of days, where I don't think he's mad about Topgolf or meetings like that. I think he's probably questioning, why aren't you in love with me? Or why aren't you telling me you are? What's the holdup? That's where I am.
They don't owe him that, though. This is the way the world
I
works
know,
in the
but
NFL.
But this is what it's one thing to be surprised when you're pick 18. It's another thing to be surprised when you're pick 2 and everybody knows who pick 1 is. I think that's the point here, that this is different than other scenarios where, we're picking in the middle of the draft and we don't know how the board's going to fall and somebody may jump us if we. So we can't say we're going to pick anybody, because there's too many moving parts. There are no moving parts. You're in control of all the moving parts. And that's why and I just, until we pick him and ask him, that's why I think that he's been, what's the best way to put this? Lukewarm? I believe him. He'll put his best effort with whoever he plays for. I believe he's the right pick for Washington. But I do think that obviously the Raiders have outwardly stated they'd like to get him.
Sure.
I think the whole I would go to Minnesota thing is actually about his visit was probably we're going to try to get you, man. We don't know if we can, but we're going to try. We're telling you up front, you're our guy. We don't know if we're going to be able to get you. Well, Washington is in control of that process, and they haven't told him that. And I think that's probably why he comes off as lukewarm, because he's kind of if you're not in love with me, why should I be in love with you? And considering what's about to happen tonight, which is he's going to, if he's picked, going to be the face of the franchise moving forward, it is an interesting way to start that relationship, that it's not we love each other. And so that's all I'm saying. We're not on a blind date here. We're not waiting to see if the board falls our way. We're not trying to make a move to get him. He's just sitting in our lap, and we're not saying you're our guy.
Yeah, but you don't know what the mandate in the league is on that either, though. The league could be telling them, hey, don't say you're going to pick up number 2, because now we're going to get into a weird situation where everyone already knows the first pick. Now they're going to know the second pick. Then the Patriots are going to say who they're going to pick if you all of a sudden do it. And then all of a sudden Roger Goodell's going, why the hell are we having a draft in prime time if everyone's just going to be revealing their picks in the days leading up to it? Whether it's the league or it's the team. They don't own anything.
But Caleb knows where he's going. They're not saying it, but he knows where they're going.
But
I don't think Jaden genuinely knows if he's being picked here or not, and that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but
if it was a little wink, 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 yeah, I'm psyched, whoever picks me. But that's not what he's saying. He's coming off very lukewarm because he literally doesn't know.
Okay, well, what if the Bears pick him? That's the risk you're running here. Not unlike what you said yesterday, where Jaden can't say, "Oh yeah, I can't wait till I'm in Washington," because he can't presume that he's doing that. The Commanders have to do it on their end too. They can't presume that Caleb Williams is going to go 1.
If that happens tonight, it will be the biggest shock in draft history.
And that's why if you're the Commanders, that's why you're not saying jack right now, because then Caleb gets drafted here and he's going, oh, well, you didn't think you'd have a chance to draft me, and now you drafted me. And then all of a sudden we get into Caleb Gate because they were all in love with Jaden Daniels. So this works both ways.
Oddly,
it's a two-way street.
Oddly, Caleb wasn't at Topgolf. He was a notable absentee from Topgolf.
Not that stops anything either. You and I have talked about it. How it's not the guys at the top of the draft, but a lot of times mid-round picks are oh yeah, I didn't even have a visit with that team. That happens all the time, right? But I'm just saying it's a two-way street.
Look. If for some reason the Bears shock everybody and pick Jaden Daniels, which I don't think they're going to do, but if they did do that, I don't know how you run that card up fast enough.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's why I think you can't presume anything if you're the team or a player in this situation.
I guess.
So that's why, and that's why I think, too, I think Goodell's also telling everybody, everyone calm down. We need everyone to watch here. This draft's now big money. It's on primetime TV now. It's on multiple channels. The league knows full well, too, yeah, we know you're probably picking Jaden. Don't put the reports out there because we kind of need Washington fans to tune in for the first half hour of the draft. So I think like I said, it's a two-way street here. No one can presume anything, and that's not only the players, that's the teams too, I think.
Okay. All right. Now, as for the rest of so we'll see what happens at quarterback. I still think it's going to be Jaden Daniels. That's what I think is going to happen, but I'm not, I don't know for sure, and I haven't met anybody who does. I haven't heard a single person who goes, I know it's going to happen. Everybody is going, we'll see.
Yep.
So we'll find out when we find out. So I'm going to be doing a show tonight with London Fletcher, Logan Paulson, for the Commanders. It's going to be, you can get out on their channels, YouTube, Facebook, X. They'll be airing it live. We're going to go 6:30 to 8 till we get to the start of the draft. And then once the draft starts, we're going to shut down until we're back on the clock. So 10, 15 minutes later, we'll be back on the clock and we'll go through our pick. And then we're going to basically, after we go through our pick and get coverage and hopefully talk to, whoever is selected, we're going to then stop down and just hang out. And I am under of the things that I do know with a complete certainty is this team does want to trade back into the first round.
Yep.
Whether they're going to be able to do it, I don't know. But that has become clear because there are a lot of really good tackle prospects that are available. And I know that they would like to get one of them. I couldn't tell you exactly who. I have a couple of names that have been floated to me as the targets.
Right.
And if they get, I think they're going to wait till it gets to a place where, so they're not going to get Joe Alt, and unfortunately, they're not going to get Olu Fashan, who went to Gonzaga, is probably going to go a little too high. But once we get past, tackle 3 or 4, and we get past 15, we're going to stay essentially, on the clock. And so I'm telling you this because we're going to interview on the Commanders show that I'm hosting tonight. We're going to interview Dan Quinn and Adam Peters.
Yep.
So that is going to happen after the picks occur. But I've already been told we're not doing the interviews until quote unquote the night is over. So they're not coming. They're not coming out. It'll tell you everything you need to know. They're not coming out to talk to us after they make a pick at number 2. They're coming out to talk to us whenever they decide their night is over.
Got it.
And so that means we may trade back in. We may not. And if they determine they're not going to trade back in, they're going to come out and talk to us. If they do trade back in, they'll make the pick and then they'll talk to us. And I will throw this out because I think there is a little bit of subterfuge here as well. Because of all the run on tackles and because there is such a high level of tackles that are available to them, I don't think it's impossible that the trade back into the first round would be for an edge rusher. I don't think that that's off the board here. If the people that they like at tackle, either there aren't as many tackles taken as they think up to that point, or the edge rushers market dips down in a place because all these quarterbacks and all these receivers and all these tackles are going to go very high. It's possible that the very high end edge rushers may fall a little bit lower than they probably should because there's 4 or 5 quarterbacks that are going to go in the top 15. There are 3 receivers that are going to go in the top 15. There are 2 to 4 tackles that are going to go in the top 15.
Yeah.
That means best defensive players on the board are going to slide in a way that is unusual. And I don't think it's the plan, but I do think plan A in a trade back in might not necessarily just be for a tackle, but could be for a premier edge rusher because they slid to a spot they should have never slid to. So that's my little spidey senses are up on that one. So I think it's possible that not only is it possible, I think it's likely they're going to try very hard to get back into the first round. Everyone believes it's going to be for a tackle. I also believe that that's the likely target that they will go for, but I do not for a second discount the idea that they will go back in and get an edge rusher if one of the better ones is lower in this draft pool than you would have expected them to be, and they're going to keep them away from the contenders who are licking their chops in the 20s that are staring down the number 2 or 3 edge rusher falling to them at 22, 23, 24. That's a nightmare. So
right.
That's where I stand on the trade back in part of it. I don't think it's definitively for a tackle. I think it's likely for a tackle, but I'm going to go with there is a 80% tackle, 20%. It's because the edge rushers fell to spots that they shouldn't have based on their talent levels, and the deal's too good to pass up. And then they'll address tackle with the second or, either the first or the second round pick on the other side and hope that 8-9 tackles don't go in the first round as some people project is going to happen tonight.
No, I mean, that makes sense. That I would say the need for a tackle and an edge rusher is equal in terms of what they've got right now.
Well, I think they literally don't have a starting left tackle.
Sure.
They have guys they can start at rush end. They're just plug and play people.
Yes.
Who they know, they have veterans, but what they don't have is a premier starter at that position. And so that's why, just because of the way the draft is falling, I don't think they mind everybody thinking they're definitively going for a tackle, and it's a need, and there is no way in my mind they can kick that can down the road. They have to get a tackle tonight. But if Jared Verse or Dallas Turner or the guy from Missouri or Chop Robinson, for some reason, haven't been picked by the time we get to the late teens, early 20s, all of a sudden you're getting the Montez Sweat type deal again, where you're getting a high-end player at a position of need at a value that is way below where he should have been picked, because there's been a run on quarterbacks and a run on receivers. So that's why I'm like, I expect it to be a tackle if they do it, but I've got 20% this is for an edge rusher, and we'll see.
No, I guess I should have prefaced it by saying they don't have a long-term solution at either
Definitely
position.
don't.
So I would say that's what I'm getting at, is they need.
I would argue they
long-term.
do not have a left tackle,
Yeah.
and then with edge rushers, I'd say they have a couple of veteran backups is what
Right.
they have.
Exactly, 100%.
Yeah. Okay, we'll take a quick break. We have a really good show today. Randy Trivers is the head coach at Gonzaga College High School. He's going to have 2 first-round picks off his 2018 team going into the NFL tonight, including the number 1 overall pick. Caleb Williams was his quarterback, so you're going to hear from him next. Ashley Hatch from the Spirit. They've got a huge match tomorrow night. We're going to talk to her at 3:45. And my partner in the booth, London Fletcher, is going to join me at 4 o'clock. We'll feel him out about Jaden Daniels, Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, what they may do if they trade back in, and what the game plan is for the draft tonight. But you'll hear from Randy Trivers next. Bram Watch the Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. Let's welcome in the head coach of Gonzaga College High School, Randy Trivers, who back in 2018 won their prestigious football championship. The quarterback of that team that night was Caleb Williams, who tonight is going to be named the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft to the Chicago Bears. Coach, it is a pleasure to have you on. I know you're in Detroit getting ready for the draft. Thank you for taking the time.
Well, appreciate you having me on, Bram, and happy to be here to celebrate a local hero that's about to be a global hero.
You obviously have coached a lot of great players, especially at Gonzaga. But I would even assume that this is surreal, right? Do you ever really think you'd be coaching the literal number 1 overall pick?
No. I mean, it's just so rare. When you think that Caleb was, has been the Heisman Trophy winner, so that's a pretty rare one as well. But you're talking Heisman and now the number 1 overall pick in the National Football League. It's surreal. It's really a dream-like situation for sure.
Tell me a little bit about him. What can you tell people about Caleb Williams as he enters the NFL, and clearly all eyes are going to be on him and what his career becomes?
Yeah, I just think anything that Caleb has done, it hasn't surprised me, because there's a pattern, a consistent pattern. So from youth league ball to high school ball to college, he's always been that player that exhibits great physical talent and skill on the field. It makes you say, "Wow, did he just do that?" So he did that as a youth league player, did it as a high school player, did it as a college player, and I will not be surprised when he does those things as an NFL player. So I would not bet against him. There's a pattern that's clearly relative to the level he's at. He always seems to do these things that are extraordinary, and does these extraordinary things frequently, which I think makes him the unique player, athlete that he is, and is really putting him on this level of, like we talked about just a moment ago, it's sort of surreal. Heisman Trophy, number 1 overall NFL draft. So that to be that guy, you're definitely doing something different than everybody else.
He appears to be the player that is literally the epitome of, you can't teach this, you just have to have it. Not to take any credit away from you, but was he always this way? Because he appears to be heading into the NFL as one of the most uniquely gifted players we've seen come in a long time.
Yeah, Caleb is, he's this phenomenal blend, of when we see his physical skills, his talent, but his mental approach to what he does, his competitive nature, and his fearlessness, and his love for his teammates. Like, all of this kind of goes into what I see as what he is, that helps make him special. But make no mistake. I mean, he's been blessed differently than most human beings that are athletes that have walked this earth. So there's certainly some otherworldliness, higher power. The good Lord, I think, has blessed him a little differently than most of us. But take nothing away from the different aspects of his development, whether that's been, people such as his foundation, his wonderful family, people that have been different, mentors and educators and coaches and those type of things along the way. All that has, I'm sure has a, somewhat of an impact, but he is, he has been blessed with potential gifts from up top that certainly allow for him to blossom and develop and grow and really fulfill his amazing potential.
You've known him from a young age. As you know, the media blender can be tough. He's a high-level draft pick, and there was a lot of questions about really minute things like fingernail polish or outfits or tears after, his team had lost a game last fall. What did you make of people questioning his makeup over what seems to be really innocuous details about him?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just par for the course. I mean, and Caleb knows that, and we know, just in the sense that when you're really talented or really elite or really successful at anything, a lot of times there are people that are going to try to find or dig in or try to shed light on some type of negativity. People for whatever reasons in society love to either negativity or controversy or hey, let's we can't always celebrate. We've got to have something that says that you're not as good as you think you are. Let's bring you back down to where we are, type of thing. So that's par for the course. But really, when you really think about it, and you think about all the great things that Caleb Williams has done as a student athlete person, and then that he's prepared to do as a professional athlete and touch people in a different way. Like, it's very minute to think about things that you're talking, like fingernails. I mean, come on, give me a break. Like,
yeah,
this guy is like, it'd be a problem if he was doing some of the things that is he out there harming people in society? Is he wielding weapons? Is he abusing substances or people, that type of thing? I mean, there are a lot of worse things that he can do than to paint fingernails or wear a certain outfit or to for heaven's sake cry tears after a game, to show that you care about something so much or people so much that you would, heaven forbid, shed tears. Like, I think those things are laughable when I hear people critiquing him for those things. But it's par for the course. That's what you always know when you are when you're on top. There are going to be those that are trying to find those things to create an interesting story, if you will. Controversy sells, right? And we've got to find a blemish, somehow. He's, I think, he handles those things pretty well, and that will continue to be something that, whether it's something different next year or in 3 or 4 or 5 years. I mean, that's you look at any successful athlete or celebrity, I'm sure they deal with it.
Last thing on him, and I don't know if this is a hard question or not, but I wonder if you've thought about it. The Commanders had the 2nd overall pick. He clearly is going to go number 1, and there was never really an opportunity, I think, for Washington to select him. But did you give any thought as the process started about the idea of him coming home and being the franchise quarterback for the Washington Commanders?
I mean, what a story that would be. You never know. So I know there's a lot of predictions as to what's going to happen in the draft. Who's going to but you never know. I mean, who knows that the pick could be traded, and or maybe they call somebody else's name, but really, what a story that would be if Caleb Williams were to be a part of the Commanders franchise. Heck of a story. So certainly, I know a lot of people have thought about that type of scenario over the last several weeks and even months maybe. But I think for Caleb, I'm delighted that that he is in a position that he's in to be drafted, to be in the first round, and certainly to be the number 1 selection is a huge deal. I guess he's had a storybook career in a lot of ways, but that would certainly make it even more unique. But I don't know that we can have it all.
Yeah. All right, last thing. You have a second player who's going to be drafted in the first round. I don't know where, but Olu Fashanu, the tackle, is going to get drafted high. The Commanders need a tackle as well. I think he's a little too high up in the draft board for Washington to probably aspire to get back in and get him. But what can you tell us about Olu as he gets set to start his NFL career?
Oh, what an amazing football player and human being that Olu Fashanu is. He's something else. To know Olu is to know that, boy, what a quality, high quality person in everything he does. So it's in everything he does. So he would be a wonderful representative to anyone's franchise. And it would be a heck of a thing. My family are big Commanders. I've got my children are big Commanders fans, so they've been dreaming about both Olu and Caleb playing together for the Commanders. But I will tell you, no, he is going to do marvelous things. I think at the next level, because he is so competent in terms of anything that he does. He's just one of those people that you come across in life that, man, whatever he does, he has a certain standard that is very, very high that he tends to meet. So unique, another unique human being. We certainly we're proud that we were able to share time with those two guys at Gonzaga.
And we're proud of the homegrown products, and wherever they land, even if we can't get them to come home, we're proud, and we'll be watching them closely. Randy, thank you so much for taking the time here. Enjoy the draft. I know it's going to be a unique night for you and your program and your family, and thank you so much for taking the time.
Appreciate you, Bram. Hey, this is an awesome thing for as we said, all of us in the DMV to have these two homegrown guys do what they're doing. So thank you very much for having me on.
The great Prince from 1983, one of the greatest albums of all time, Purple Rain. And we chose 1983 for Throwback Thursday this week because that was the year that the Hall of Famer Darrell Green was selected number 28 overall in the first round of the NFL draft, and then number 28 became one of the legendary players of the then Washington Redskins. And today it was announced that he's going to become only the fourth player to have his jersey retired. A really cool honor and way overdue for what I believe is one of the Mount Rushmore players who's come through this organization's near 100-year history. As I welcome in another legend of the franchise, London Fletcher, my partner in the broadcast booth as we get set for night one of the draft. London, Logan Paulson, Brian Mitchell, Brian Colbert, Santana Moss, and others. We're going to be with you on YouTube for the Commanders from 6:30 to 8 leading into the draft. And then whenever the team is back on the clock, which is clearly number 2, and then potentially later as well, we'll be doing that tonight. London, thanks for coming on today. I'm excited we're finally here at the draft.
Oh man, excited as well. To finally get the draft kind of started and see what we're going to do at the number 2 pick.
Before I get into it, do you have any thoughts on Darrell Green and that announcement today that we're retiring his number 28?
Oh, absolutely, man. You mentioned one of the Mount Rushmore players who've ever been a part of this organization. Really an iconic player. When you think about him playing 20 years, first and foremost, that's ridiculous, unheard of. I mean, I played 16. I couldn't imagine trying to play another 4 years. But then to play all 20 for the same organization and be, what he was as a player, as a person, just one of the most well-respected people that has ever played in the National Football League. And you mentioned, long overdue. He should have had his number retired a long time ago. I know it was taken out of rotation, but it's great that it's finally going to be officially retired.
Yeah, I think it's a great honor. He's actually going to introduce a couple of our draft picks over the next couple of days, but we get to number 2 tonight. We're finally here. We're all assuming Caleb Williams goes number 1. And I can't believe it's 4-something in the afternoon, 4 hours away from this selection being made, and I can't definitively tell you who it's going to be. So what's your best guess? Who do you think goes to Washington?
Man, I if you asked me probably 2 hours ago, I said it's going to be Jaden Daniels. And then I've all of a sudden allowed doubt to creep in my mind. I was like, maybe it could be Drake May. Maybe they're looking at it like, you know what? You see this 6'4", 230-pound, specimen who and you just imagine only 21 years old, man, what he could be, clean up some of the footwork and mechanic issues, and you're like, man, maybe it's Drake May, but I'm gonna stick with what I was thinking a while ago, and I'm gonna say Jaden Daniels. That's what I believe it to be, but as you know, anything could happen.
Is that who you would pick? If you had the choice to make, would you pick him?
Yeah, that would be my choice, just based on the watching the season that he had, and going back and looking at his film this year. I mean, he was outstanding. He was the best quarterback in football, in college football, as evident by him winning the Heisman Trophy. Drake May didn't play that good this year in comparison. I thought his season last year, 2022, the film was really good, but this year, just a lot of misses, a lot of things that left you scratching your head, like what's really going on. And people could talk about the talent not being as good as this year for Carolina as it was a year ago, but some of the misses that he had that had nothing to do with talent around him. But was it a product? I know he had a new offensive coordinator this year, and how long did it take for him to get comfortable in that system and things like that? But Jaden Daniels, he's an elite talent, elite arm, things like that. Him and Caleb Williams were the two guys that I have viewed as really like elite quarterbacks in this draft.
Do you have any sense of what this offense is going to look like yet under Cliff Kingsbury? Are you looking back at what he did at Arizona? Do you think it's going to be different this time around? And how much does that play into who the quarterback actually is?
Initially, when you hear that Cliff Kingsbury is going to be the offensive coordinator, you obviously definitely go back and look at what he did in Arizona to kind of get an idea of what his scheme will be. You see him drafting Kyler Murray first overall a couple of years ago, and you say, okay, who fits his offense best? Is it going to be a true air raid offense? And then you throw in, they kind of threw a wrinkle when they brought in Anthony Lynn from the San Francisco 49ers. And is they going to put an element of that type of run game as a part of this offense? And then you bring in Johnson from the Eagles, and what part of the offense is he going to bring with him from Philadelphia? So there's going to be, I feel like, a collaboration of maybe those three different schemes. It won't be truly a air raid offense. I think you'll have some of the zone running schemes that Kyle Shanahan used out of Arizona that Anthony Lynn will bring with him, and maybe even a little bit of the stuff that Philadelphia brought to the table as well.
All right, last one, and I'm with you. I think it's either Jaden Daniels or Drake May, but I think it's going to be Jaden Daniels because when I watch him, I just don't know in the end how you turn down that elite athleticism, and he's gotten better and better and better through his career. I don't know how you turn that down, but J.J. McCarthy's name has been circulated. I know for a fact that this team did extensive research on him, and they do like him. So have you taken him very seriously as a candidate to be the number 2 overall pick?
Initially, I didn't when you heard Jim Harbaugh say, hey, man, J.J. McCarthy is the best quarterback in this draft. I was like, whatever. I'm just thinking, this is a guy kind of selling his guy. But then I went back and I looked at J.J. McCarthy. I watched every one of his throws, every one of his runs, and I was extremely impressed with what I saw because when you thought about Michigan in the past, you didn't think about, hey, J.J. McCarthy is who you got to stop. You thought about, hey, we got to be able to stop the run and deal with their defense and the pressures and the blitzes that they bring and things like that. J.J. McCarthy you thought was more of a game manager, but then when you really do a deep dive into him and what he brought in the talent, you're like, hold on a second, this guy can actually swing this football. You extremely underrated athlete, winner, got great size. He's played in bad weather, so he has to have the hand size and the ability to sling it in all types of weather. So you're like, man, really starting to look at him like I actually, after looking at it, I could see where some teams possibly could have J.J. McCarthy ahead of Drake May and some instances, maybe even Jaden Daniels. Like, you know what? Just based on what he's been able to do, especially if you think about his record at Michigan and all that he achieved.
When it comes to May, and you've talked about this, and everyone keeps talking about this, that the ceiling's really high because he's this elite athlete, but there's a lot of work to do. And I know this team has runway, and I know that this ownership is going to be semi-patient, but do they really want to bring somebody in here that they know is going to be a project? Like trying to build up all the excitement of all the newness here. Don't they want somebody who's more akin to potentially help them win sooner rather than later?
Well, when you think about when you hear people say, "Hey, Drake May's going to need a little bit of time," don't think this is some guy that's an extremely raw quarterback. A guy like Trey Lance comes to mind, where he only played the one year in college, and I don't think he even played a whole lot of games. Where you just don't have a lot of film on. This is a situation where his 2022 film was outstanding, extremely, really good football player. This year, for whatever reason, didn't play as well, but there's just a couple things he needs to clean up. And it's not, some glaring like, man, this might be a 2-year project with him. This is not that type of project when you talk about Drake May needing a little bit of time. It might be, hey, get in before off season, working in really hard in your off-season workouts, whatever, whenever the rookies are allowed to come in, training camp, constantly working on his footwork and things like that. And think about it, none of these guys are finished products, whether it's Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, or Drake May. None of them are finished products. All of them are going to continue to get better and need a little seasoning. But, that's so don't overthink this like, man, he's a project that you're hoping that he turns into a great quarterback in 2 or 3 years.
Okay. Let me go back to. I haven't talked to you about this, and I'm dying to hear how you feel about this. What did you make of all of the discussion of the decision to have all of the draftees go to Topgolf together and Jaden Daniels' representatives maybe being a little bit irked about it? What did you think about that?
I didn't think too much of it. I thought it was just, maybe them just doing something a little bit out of the. I won't even say out of the box because after hearing a little bit more, this is not something unusual. Other teams have done these types of things before. Maybe it's just it was an opportunity to maybe kind of throw the set off of who you thinking they might take. Let's get these guys all together. Let's see how they interact. Let's see, leadership qualities of each one of these guys we're literally able to see who are the alphas in this group. Who is a leader amongst these guys and evaluate them all at the same time. So I actually didn't mind it.
Were you surprised that his agent said anything about it? Because they did.
Yeah. Yes, I was a little bit surprised because, for an agent, he knows, whether it was just the emoji and liking some of the tweets or whatever, he knows that those things will be viewed, whether it's taken out of context or not. He knew that there was going to be some conversation about it. He's been around in the game long enough, so if you had true displeasure with that, he could have voiced that to the team, to the hierarchies and things like that. So I was a little bit surprised that his agent chose to go the public route with doing whatever he did.
Okay, last thing on Jaden. He has said publicly he'd love to play for the Raiders because he has a previous relationship with Antonio Pierce. He has not publicly stated he'd love to play for the Commanders, but everybody believes that he'll, I guess, be okay with it is the way that it's kind of being positioned. If you're Adam Peters and Dan Quinn and the ownership here, do you want to hear from him that he really wants to be here, or does that not matter to you at this point?
I think, that doesn't matter. I'm sure he's already told them he'd be fine if he ended up in Washington. We all grew up fans of certain teams, or maybe he played for Antonio Pierce. I'm sure they had a great relationship. So yeah, he would love to play for a guy that he knows and has developed a relationship with. But that's not the way the NFL works, man. It's just not how it goes. You don't get to pick them like you're making your decision in college. You're picked in the NFL, and the team. If Washington feels he's going to be the best fit for them at the quarterback at number 2, that's how it's going to be, and I'm sure he'll embrace DC very quickly.
Okay, that's number 2. Are you of the mindset that you expect Washington to try to trade back in probably for a tackle later in the first round tonight?
I am of that mindset, and depending on how the draft goes, and I think there's going to be a run on tackles because a lot of teams need tackles. So you're looking at, we got 36 and 40. I don't think you can sit back at 36 or 40 and guarantee that you're going to get a tackle, maybe 2 or 3 guys that you kind of covet, and you feel like they're not going to be there at 36. I think they almost have to. They probably, I'm sure have already made a bunch of calls saying, hey, talking to teams and saying, hey, we're willing to come up and what would it take? So I'm sure those are conversations that were already taking place, and it wouldn't surprise me if they came up to, let's say, early 20s, early to mid 20s to get a guy that they really covet.
Yeah. I want to just throw this out at you and see if it makes any sense to you, because I was talking about this earlier. I think if they go back in, it's to get a tackle, like 80-90%, because they have to address it. However, the way the boards are going with all these quarterbacks going early, all these tackles going early, all these receivers going early, like all the really good defensive players are just dropping down the board. And they need an edge rusher too. Like, do you think it's possible they'd go back into the first round and take a top-tier edge rusher, not unlike what they did a few years back when they got Montez Sweat, because the value is just there for the caliber of player that might be available to them later in the first round?
No, I don't think that. When you look at what they did in free agency, they added 3 guys at the defensive end position, and yeah, a couple of them are on 1-year deals, but you kind of address that need. That's not an immediate need. However, when you look at the left tackle position, that's a glaring need right there. something that has to be addressed. And I know they re-signed Cornelius Lucas, but he's more of a swing tackle. Somebody can get you, through a game or a couple games. But I don't think they view him as a long-term starter. So they have to get a left tackle. I don't think you come back into the first round to draft a defensive end or even a defensive player from that standpoint.
Okay, let me ask you about a couple of our rivals. See what you think here. Giants pick 6. Do you think they're going to take a quarterback? What do you think they're going to do?
Smoot and I, we did a mock draft the other day, and although they'll be tempted to take a quarterback, I think they take a left tackle. As many times as Sam was sacked last year, and how many sacks we gave up as a team, the Giants actually, as a team, gave up more sacks than we did. It was like 85 sacks allowed. So I think they're going to take Joe Alt, the left tackle from Notre Dame, and widely considered the best left tackle in this draft. So I think they, roll the dice with Daniel Jones another year and say, hey, hopefully he can stay healthy, but we got to get him protection.
Okay. And how about Dallas? Do you think early in the draft that they are eyeing picking Dak Prescott's successor?
I don't think that. I don't think they're thinking about picking Dak Prescott's successor. They may feel like, hey, well, Jerry may feel like they got his successor on the roster already. We mentioned Trey Lance, and he's been there a year now. Maybe they feel in practice like really like his tackle talent. He's had an opportunity to sit and learn for a year, and then an additional year behind Dak Prescott. They may already view him as an heir apparent to Dak Prescott. But when you look at Dallas, and I think they have a need at tackle. So it can offensive line in general. It wouldn't surprise me with the Cowboys going out and drafting the offensive lineman either.
Okay. All right. Last thing, and then I'll let you go. Non-draft. Today, the team decided they're not going to pick up the 5th-year option on Jamin Davis. I don't think that's much of a surprise, but he'll be back here for this year in this new defense. What do you want to see from him to try to get his career going in the direction that I think they thought it could get to when he was drafted initially, and potentially find a role here on this defense?
Yeah, and you mentioned role. That's going to be the key, because they already went out and they signed Frankie Louisville to a 3-year deal, gave him some money, and they brought in Bobby Wagner. Most teams don't really play 3 linebackers, so how much of a role is Jamin going to have in this defense? And is he going to be kind of like an edge guy that they bring in and kind of do some of the things they did last year with Dallas? They did it with their middle linebacker, put him off the edge last year. I can't even think of his name. But the situation with Jamin is he just has continued to get better as a football player. I thought there were times where he showed a lot of flash, a lot of potential. He was miscast at the middle linebacker position when he first got to Washington. So just continued growth and allow his athleticism and talent to shine.
London, I'll see you in a couple hours. Thanks so much for taking the time today. I look forward to finally getting an answer of which quarterback we're picking. So I'll see you later.
Yeah, both of us.
All right. That's London Fletcher, who, of course, is in the booth with me Sundays in the fall, and I'll be doing a show again tonight. London Fletcher, Logan Paulson will be in Ashburn together, 6:30 to 8, and then every time that Washington's on the clock, which is obviously at least once, and London and I both agree, I think a lot of us agree, probably will be a second time at some point in the first round as the team likely goes after a tackle tonight.